everybody. I hope you're doing well today. We are going to dig into a new journal page today, and I'm going to go over the 5 things that I think are really important when you're wanting to add depth to your collage work or your journal pages. So what I have right here is a stack of pages that I've already created, and I'm going to be using a piece of watercolor paper to do this collage work on. Watercolor paper is great because it's a little bit thicker and it allows for a lot of layers and it's not super expensive. So I'm going to pull that over here and we're going to get going right away.
Everybody, I just wanted to take a quick break and let you know that I have an upcoming course coming this December. It is all about creating an unbound journal. So if you've ever wanted to learn more about collage work and journaling and getting your story out into some beautiful pages, this one is for you. So if you're interested or you'd just like to learn more, go ahead and click the link below and you can sign up for the wait list. And as I said, doors will open in December and I can't wait to see you guys there.
All right, so to get started, the first thing I tend to do, and if you've seen many of my videos before, you know this to be true, is I like to start with just making some marks. So typically that will be either a regular pencil or I have these kind of vibrant neon colored pencils as well. So what I'll do is just kind of start by making a scribble. And of course I picked a mechanical pencil here that the tip is broken so nothing is coming out. So I'm just gonna grab my regular pencil here and go ahead and just make some scribbles. And you don't really realize how much this does when you're staring at a blank canvas or a blank sheet of paper. Just getting some marks down can really help you just get going. It kind of takes the fear of the perfectionism off the table and just allows you to begin, because we all know the hardest part is just to begin. So then I'm going to incorporate some of these neon colors just because they're fun and I like them. And I have no rhyme or reason at this point. I'm just doing something that is familiar to me. I tend to make my scribbles go on the outside a little bit just because I know I'm probably going to create something on the inside that's a little more of a focal point. All right, so that is step number 1, is just getting some scribbles out, getting some marks down with something as simple as a pencil. And then the next step I like to do is to get some thin paint layers out. And I don't even pull out a paintbrush here. I just use a piece of cardboard and I get on some paint on my paper. And the idea here is that we don't want to oversaturate the paper. We just want to create something that looks kind of fun and adding a different layer. We don't need to completely cover the piece of paper. So I'll start with something like this, and then again, just take a little bit of cardboard or cardstock, whatever you have on hand, and just slide the paint. And what this does is create a super thin layer. And the benefit of doing it this way is it dries really quickly as well. And I tend to like these paints that are a little more translucent so that the layers, as you can see, the scribbles that I've done already kind of shine through. And that's another little secret of creating a more deep layer appearance, is because you can see those layers come through. And I'm still on my neon paint color kit here, so I'm just going to roll with that. And you can see there's just barely any paint on here. And I feel like oftentimes people kind of shy away from black paints. I think it's kind of a little bit more scary because it's such a contrast from the other colors. But I really encourage you, just give it a try. It really kind of enhances and gives more depth to the page. And also know that we can always add some layers and kind of make this a little more subtle if we want to down the line here. So you can see I just got some really thin paint. And then I tend to leave a little bit of space in the center or in some part of the piece that I'm working on, because I know I'm gonna want to add either some text or a photo or something. So when it comes to journal pages, I really like to leave a little space. And just in general, white space is just a helpful thing to have aesthetically with any kind of artwork or journal page that you're creating. Okay, so I'm going to move on to my third step here in creating really deep layers, and that is incorporating some of my tissue paper designs here, which I've talked about this a lot. I have a whole video on how I create these. These are just great because you can put these on your work and all the layers underneath still shine through. So I'm just going to pick out some different designs here. I try not to overthink this at all, especially when it comes to a journal page where I'm just really trying to be in the moment and kind of feel out the vibes that I'm currently in or that I want to write about. And I just kind of pick some pieces that feel right in that sense. And just play around with the placement a little bit. Again, this is kind of like an intuitive thing where laying down the pages where it feels good to you. Some of these pages I will tear and some I will cut nicely with some scissors. All right, so this looks like a pretty good start so far. Just kind of shuffling through my pile here to see if there's anything else I want to add. And there's no right way to do it, so whatever feels good to you is the right way. All right, and then I'm going to start with a glue stick here. See how this goes. Again, with a journal page, you can really use any level of supplies, whatever helps adhere the layers for you and whatever you have on hand. You don't need to use anything super expensive. I do find, this is just a little trick here, I do find when I use a glue stick, my tissue paper doesn't show as translucent as when I use matte medium, which is what I'm pulling out here, or some more liquid kind of adhesive. I think when you saturate the tissue paper, it allows for the paper to kind of just blend into the back a little more versus a glue stick, which is a little more solid. So it's really personal preference. And again, whatever you have on hand works just fine. But I do tend to I really enjoy the matte medium or even just Elmer's glue works just fine as well. I use that quite a bit. But this is nice because I can just brush it on and these layers lay really, really flat. So this is just my personal style. You might be doing the same exact thing and your page might be a little more crisp and clean, maybe a little more organized, likely different colors than I've chosen. So this is where you can really start to make it your own. Okay, get all these layers down. Okay, I think that is looking pretty good. All right, so the next step, this is step number 4 with creating really in-depth layers, is to create a point on your page or your artwork that really draws your eye in. And a lot of times this is something that's more of a contrast from what you've created before. So, like for example, that flower was quite a different vibe than what I had going on elsewhere on the page, and that would have been a great thing to incorporate in. Another thing is text, which is what I'm going to try out here. I just have a notebook here from Muji. Also, the pen that I'm writing with is from Muji, a store that I absolutely love. So I am just going to write part of a quote that I wrote out a long time ago. Just going to pull a part of that and then incorporate that into my journal page here. But it's all about moving your eye around the page and making it look interesting. And so when you're creating layers, you want to kind of lean into that and figure out, how can I get someone to like look all around the pages and be curious about how I created these different layers, what's underneath there. It's interesting, it's fun. It might be dark in some places. So that's the fun of doing this whole process. And there's many different techniques that I've shared in the past about how to incorporate text into journal pages like this or artwork. But for today, I'm just going to write on this little piece of paper here and incorporate that in. Nothing too fancy. All right, so I'm just going to tear this down so it's not quite as big. And you see naturally how I spoke about earlier that there is more of a white space right in the center. And so this is the perfect spot to incorporate this text. Another thing I like to do, and this is just my style, is lean into that focal point situation where I'm really going to outline this quote. I really want people to kind of see this and read this. So I just kind of outlined it in the way that I do, and then I'm just going to flip the page upside down. That's another thing that it's a free pass to flip the page around, turn it over. There's so many different ways here. No layout is exactly right. So do what feels good for you. But you don't have to be constrained to just one way of going about these pages, which is why it's so nice. Now I'm still using the matte medium here to put down the paper here where my quote is written. But I would say, generally speaking, with thicker paper, you could use something more like a thicker solid like that glue stick that I was using earlier. But it seems like the matte medium is holding it down just fine right now. Right, so here we go. So once again, between the thin layer of paints that I added and the thin layers of glue that I put all these different layers down with, nothing is super saturated on this page. It's basically dry at this point. And so that makes it just a lot easier to work with, especially when I'm gonna add a couple more layers here for extra details. So my fifth and final for today tip is to go back in and really focus on the edges of your pieces and go back and add some layers. And that again will just make the whole page kind of come together almost in like a framing sense. You're going to kind of frame in what you've just created. So you can see how I do that here. Other people might do it a different way. You can cut out paper here and kind of frame it in. I just like to go in with my pen or with some markers, which you'll see me doing here. And none of these lines need to be straight at all. Of course, they can be if that's your jam. But just kind of make a frame of some sort and add some little fun details. It's another thing that just creates more layers and more points of intrigue on your artwork. And this can also be one of those things that takes a very long time in the sense that it's really fun. So you can go in and color each line, each little bit of white space here. You can leave it plain. I mean, you can just do so much, and really you could just spend the whole day decorating your page. And there are times where I'll create one page and then I'll come back the next day or so and add some extra details. So it's all about just creating the perception that there's many, many layers here, when really, I mean, you just saw me create this page. I mean, there are a lot of layers, but it's nothing too complicated. It's really accessible and fun. And there's so many different shapes and styles here that you can incorporate. Everyone kind of has their own little spin on this. That paint marker is empty. I'm getting low on some of my paints. And I need to, my paints and my paint markers, and I need to kind of refill my stock. Speaking of that, if you ever want to donate a little bit of money to my art supplies or buy me a coffee, whatever, um, all the contributions do help at this point. So I do keep a link for stuff like that below. It's always helpful. So here we go. I'm going in with some darker colors here, which again is creating more contrast. I wouldn't necessarily say this page is super cohesive in any way, but that is okay. Going in with some of my Posca pens here. These tend to be, or at least this one in particular, is a little bit thicker than my just regular Muji black pen, so nice to create some differences there. I call these my little ladder marks because I'm just creating these lines that look like ladders everywhere. And when you're working and you're really in deep concentration mode, and maybe you have some music playing in the background, maybe you have your headphones on, I mean, you can really see how this can become quite a therapeutic process, which is exactly why I created my course that is coming out in December, because I want people to really lean into this opportunity to get their story out, to get some art making out, and to really create a beautiful piece of artwork and tell their story in a really real and gritty and imperfect, but also just beautiful way. So I see this little bit of white space above my quote here. I'm just trying to figure out at this point what I want to fill that in with. All right, so I'm going back to the beginning and just grabbing my regular pencil here. I'm just going to add some more marks. That's feeling good. And then again, to circle back to where I started, maybe just a couple more thin layers of paint. And doing this with the cardboard versus getting a paintbrush out really allows you to kind of lose that control. You're kind of just letting the paint go where it's going to go. Which is a nice exercise. Clearly my paints are just about out. Like I said earlier, I'm really having to squeeze the last little bits out of them. Now the color white is a great one to incorporate on top of your work or on top of your journals, because it really does, if you felt like you've overdone it in certain areas and you just want to create a more subtle look, but also again, let those layers underneath come through. White is really great because it's super light, very transparent, and it gives the effect that there's just many layers underneath there. A little more detail around this quote. And again, in the course that I am teaching in December, I talk about how to incorporate more than just quotes. I talk about how to incorporate images and photos and all different shapes and different papers and that kind of thing. So if you're interested, you can read all about it. Again, the link is below. And go ahead and sign up for my wait list, which will be opening very soon. And then we'll get you all signed up, and the class will be released in December. So I go over all the little details here of how I do my collage work, materials involved, different options for your pages and journals. It's going to be super fun. I'm really, really excited about it. All right, so remember that point where I said you could just keep going on these things forever and ever? Here I am still going, still kind of creating this outer frame of my work. And looking back at this, you know, there's so many things I probably would have changed or added more of, and that's okay. That's just how things kind of end up. So there we go. There is the finalized page, and you can see how there's a lot of similarities with these other pages that I've already created. So this will just be another page in my ongoing Unbound journal, and a way for me to tell my story and put it out there and just create a beautiful piece of artwork that can live on forever. So thank you all for watching, and I hope you are doing well. Be safe out there, and I will talk to you soon. Cheers.